The Ghost of Hollow Creek, a village's haunting tale. Nestled in a secluded valley surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills, the village of Hollow Creek had long been a place of tranquility and simple living. With its cobblestone streets, quaint cottages, and a picturesque river that meandered through the heart of the village, it seemed like a haven untouched by time. However, beneath its serene exterior lay a chilling secret, a legend that whispered of a restless spirit that haunted its residents. This is the story of the Ghost of Hollow Creek, a tale that would forever change the lives of those who called the village home. Chapter 1: The Newcomer. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Eleanor James arrived in Hollow Creek. Seeking an escape from the chaos of city life, she had purchased an old, charming cottage on the outskirts of the village. The cottage, known as Willow House, had been vacant for years, its previous occupants having left under mysterious circumstances. Eleanor, a writer by profession, was drawn to its rustic charm and the promise of solitude it offered. The villagers greeted her warmly but with a hint of apprehension. They were friendly enough, but Eleanor couldn't help but notice the uneasy glances and whispered conversations that seemed to follow her. She chalked it up to the natural curiosity of a small community and focused on settling into her new home. Chapter 2: The First Night. On her first night in Willow House, Eleanor was awoken by a strange noise. It was a soft, melodic humming, like a lullaby carried on the wind. Groggy and disoriented, she dismissed it as her imagination and went back to sleep. But the next night, and the night after that, the humming returned, growing louder and more distinct. Determined to find the source, Eleanor began exploring the cottage. She checked every room, every nook and cranny, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The humming seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, a haunting melody that sent chills down her spine. Chapter 3: The Legend of Eliza. As the days turned into weeks, the humming persisted, and Eleanor began to notice other strange occurrences. Objects would move on their own, doors would creak open and shut, and the temperature would drop suddenly, filling the air with an icy chill. Desperate for answers, she turned to the villagers for help. It was old Mrs. Henderson, the village historian, who finally revealed the truth. She spoke of Eliza Gray, a young woman who had lived in Willow House over a century ago. Eliza was said to have been beautiful, with a voice that could enchant anyone who heard it. But her life had been marred by tragedy. She fell in love with a traveling musician who promised to return for her, but he never did. Heartbroken and betrayed, Eliza fell into despair and was found dead in her home, a victim of apparent suicide. According to the legend, Eliza's spirit never left Willow House. Her ghost, filled with sorrow and longing, haunted the cottage, singing the same lullaby she once sang while waiting for her lover's return. The villagers believed that anyone who lived in Willow House would be tormented by Eliza's restless spirit. Chapter 4: The Haunting Intensifies. With this newfound knowledge, Eleanor's fear grew. The haunting became more aggressive, with shadows flitting across the walls, ghostly whispers echoing through the halls, and the chilling presence of an unseen entity following her every move. The humming, once soft and melancholic, now carried a note of anger and despair. Eleanor's nights were filled with nightmares of a pale, mournful figure with long, flowing hair and hollow eyes. She would wake up drenched in sweat, the feeling of cold fingers brushing against her skin lingering long after she opened her eyes. Sleep-deprived and desperate, she sought help from a paranormal investigator named Dr. Jonathan Hale. Chapter 5: The Investigation. Dr. Hale arrived with an array of equipment designed to detect and communicate with spirits. He set up cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic field detectors throughout Willow House. As night fell, he and Eleanor sat in the living room, waiting for any signs of paranormal activity. The humming began as expected, and the equipment immediately registered fluctuations. Dr. Hale conducted a seance, attempting to make contact with Eliza's spirit. The air grew cold, and a faint, ghostly figure began to materialize before them. Eliza's sorrowful eyes met Eleanor's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Through the seance, Eliza communicated her story. She had been deceived by the man she loved, who had left her pregnant and alone. Desperate and heartbroken, she had taken her own life, but her spirit remained trapped in the house, bound by the grief and betrayal she had suffered. She revealed that her child had been born and died shortly after, and she had buried him in the garden under the old willow tree. Chapter 6: The Unveiling. Eleanor and Dr. Hale decided to investigate the garden. Beneath the willow tree, they found a small, unmarked grave. Digging carefully, they uncovered the remains of a tiny, long-forgotten baby. Eleanor felt a deep sadness for Eliza, understanding the depth of her despair and the reason her spirit lingered. They gave the child a proper burial, and Eleanor planted flowers around the grave, hoping to bring some peace to Eliza's restless soul. That night, the humming ceased, replaced by a profound silence. Eleanor hoped that Eliza had finally found the closure she needed. Chapter 7: The Final Confrontation. For a few days, it seemed as though the haunting had ended. The house was quiet, and Eleanor began to feel at ease. However, this sense of peace was short-lived. One night, she was awakened by a blood-curdling scream. The ghostly figure of Eliza appeared before her, more malevolent than ever. Her eyes burned with anger, and her voice was a chilling wail of pain and fury. Dr. Hale, who had stayed in the village, rushed to Eleanor's aid. Together, they attempted another seance, but this time, Eliza's spirit was uncontrollable. Objects flew across the room, and an oppressive darkness filled the air. Eliza's ghost revealed that she was not alone. She had been joined by the spirits of other tormented souls who had suffered similar fates in the village. Chapter 8: The Dark History of Hollow Creek. Dr. Hale and Eleanor delved deeper into the history of Hollow Creek. They discovered that the village had a dark past, with numerous accounts of betrayal, murder, and unresolved tragedies. It seemed that the valley itself was a magnet for sorrow and despair, drawing in those who had suffered and trapping their spirits in an endless cycle of torment. Eliza's spirit was not the cause but a symptom of a much larger, malevolent force that permeated the village. Determined to break the cycle, Eleanor and Dr. Hale sought the help of a local priest, Father O'Connell, who had experience with exorcisms and cleansing rituals. Chapter 9: The Ritual. Father O'Connell agreed to help, and they devised a plan to perform a cleansing ritual to release the trapped spirits. On a moonless night, they gathered in Willow House, each armed with items of spiritual significance, holy water, blessed candles, and protective charms. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation and fear. As they began the ritual, the house seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy. Shadows twisted and writhed, and ghostly figures appeared, their faces contorted with anguish. Father O'Connell recited prayers and incantations, invoking the power of light and purity to banish the darkness. Eliza's spirit appeared, her form more defined and her eyes filled with a desperate plea for release. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light filled the room, and the spirits began to dissipate, their anguished cries fading into silence. With the completion of the ritual, the oppressive atmosphere in Willow House lifted. The house felt lighter, the air clearer. Eliza's spirit, along with the other tormented souls, had finally found peace. Eleanor felt a profound sense of relief, knowing that she had helped to end their suffering. The villagers, too, noticed a change. The air seemed fresher, the nights quieter, and the sense of unease that had plagued Hollow Creek for generations began to dissipate. Eleanor continued to live in Willow House, transforming it into a place of warmth and light, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The legend of Eliza Gray and the haunting of Hollow Creek became a tale of redemption and hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light can find a way to shine through. And so, the village of Hollow Creek moved forward, carrying with it the lessons of the past and the promise of a brighter future.
Don't forget to subscribe.